Does that make sense? That's very honest.
Yeah.
Because we never read the script before.
Took her up back and we shot the guns. Are there ways in which you've sort of been able...
You pop into my mind so much. I'd be doing dishes and like, oh, how's slang doing? And
You got me to nerd out. I'll kill you! I swear!
I was thinking about how sort of both being on set on the last one, whatever it was, 7 years ago, and just when you ramp up promo for this, must create this like feeling in your bones or a muscle memory of like where you were at that time when you first started on it, where your career was, who was around you, and then having this split between that and your current life of Oscar on the mantle, meeting the Pope, meeting the president of DR, and how does that register for you? This kind of like a feeling in your bones of like, that's who of who you were as you entered this world, who you are now.
I mean, I'm a Gemini, so I do empathize from both ends. There is a part of me that feels like, oh my God, this is who I am today versus, where I came from and everything, of how it was before. There's that other part of me that I always knew that I was gonna be okay. Because I have an intense sense of curiosity. I am very driven by excellence, and I'm incredibly loved by my family. So I'm very supported and enabled. So I always knew that whatever it was that I was going to do, that I was going to be okay because it was something that I was gonna go look for it myself. Does that make sense? But then there's that other part that half of me is this accidental tourist that just happens to just open all the right doors for myself sometimes, and I haven't opened all the time all the right doors, and I still have no regrets because I've learned every time you make a misstep, you learn something about yourself, you reach a milestone, and that catapults you to the next sort of milestone. So yeah, it does amaze me, but also it doesn't. Yeah, is that okay? How do I answer that without seeming? Because I'm not arrogant about it at all. I just don't look back. I just live in such a present mode all the time. I'm also not the person that has the 2 to 5 year plan. I don't do that. So I literally, today is whatever it is that I'm passionate about. I have to finish it and then I can move on.
Well, and I mean that comes through in the character. It comes through in everything when we see you on screen, and there's this strength behind your eyes always. I think that is inescapable, and that is what makes you successful.
Oh, that's my mother and me. Trust me. You guys have to meet my mom.
Awa will provide. Yeah. So where was Awa? Where was Awa when our son?
Jake! I'm in this place where I have nothing. Not my people, not my forest. Even my father's bow is gone.
What have you sort of found yourself, or what did you find yourself, I guess, as you were sort of on set, growing closer as a person to this character, or growing sort of further away from as a person in real life?
I wrestled with Neytiri in Way of Water, and also in Fire and Ash. From a personal perspective, because I'm so driven and I'm such an individual that when I do make a decision, yes, I'll consult with my partner and I'll consult with the family, but I'm very much a Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders. It's like, this is what we're gonna do. Don't worry about the plan. Just do as I'm very much like that. But I learned so much from Neytiri that there is safety in trusting someone else when they lead. And Neytiri trusts Jake Sully blindly. And just because a woman is allowing their partner to take the lead, it doesn't mean that this woman is allowing to fall back in a position of weakness. And the same goes for if the roles were reversed. So Neytiri does teach me that. And also Jim, because Jim, wrote Neytiri to be such bound by her faith. And if the will of Awa made her partner Torukmakto, then this is her leader. So I'm happy that she taught me that. She taught me to have that kind of humility that I wouldn't otherwise, be able to acquire on my own. Does that make sense? That's very honest.
Yeah. That makes sense a lot to me. Yeah, like that. Like this is not what I would do.
But you know, in Fire and Ash, you see her begin to question it. Yeah. And that's the rift that's going to happen between them. That's what's going to maybe pull them apart, is the fact that, wait, I've been following you this far and I already buried a son. And I think she's finding it really hard not to blame him for that. And what through my research and experience, you know, loosely with families that have experienced a loss of this magnitude, such as losing a child, is that you fight really hard to not play the blame game. And Jake is playing it as well, and so is Neytiri, and that's drifting them apart from each other. So then you begin to challenge each other. It's like if he says we're going to go north, she's in her mind thinking we should go south, you know. And I'm happy that Jim wrote that kind of complexity for this family, because one, it's familiar, and two, it gives them an arc where they're really going to have to, besides the war that they're having to sort of fight, they're fighting this internal war as a family. And the Sully children are definitely, you know, the ones that are having to grow up faster and maybe become the guides of their family. And I love that in the heart of this installment of Avatar, the Sully family, the Sully children are the heart of it.
We must fight! I call upon the warrior mother.
You know, this has some pretty sort of elemental religious themes in especially sort of in your character. We have the mother, the daughter, and the holy tree in a way. Did that sort of inform you, or were you sort of thinking about that along the way?
I don't think she feels that she's part of that unit. I think one of Kiri's struggles has been that she's kind of floating out there by herself. And the fact that she has no connection to Awa and doesn't know who her father is. A lot of those questions are answered in this, but she's not thrilled with the answers. So it is fun to see that in spite of these things, she and all the children seem to come into their own in this one, because mom and dad are busy with other horrible things. And so they have to save themselves and each other.
And that sort of, I guess, searching and confusion about who you are, you seem like somebody who's very much like you know who you are, and you're very like sort of comfortable in your own skin. But
Fooled you, dude. Fooled you.
Tell me, what's that process for you look like on a sort of lifelong basis of that search for identity? If maybe that's a little bit too big of a question, but
I'm still searching. I mean, honestly, I think there's a difference between how you might approach work. I think for many actors, work is an escape from yourself. So I think I'm a much more vulnerable person than people think. They think I'm Ripley, which is not true. And so this movie gave me an opportunity to go back to being this age where I had a pretty miserable time. And I'm so glad that I was going to a really good school and had some teachers who really believed in me, and that saved me, you know. But I think if you have those experiences, you're still, you know, like I think Kiri's neurodivergent. I'm pretty sure I am too. Maybe we all are. You know. But I think that you're always going to have issues a little bit.
What was those teenage years like for you? And who were was it drama? Was it theater people?
No, I wasn't even brave enough to be in the theater. I did stuff in grade school I thought it was pretty good, like the Cheshire Cat. I always had fun. And then when it got a little more serious, at drama school, I just didn't fit in. You know, I hated how professional it was. I missed my friends at school. We were amateurs and we were fearless. And we did Shakespeare and new plays and Commedia dell'arte. And so it wasn't very pleasant to be told you have no talent. at drama school. I think I've only recently processed that little gem, but that often happens to people in art schools.
Where you go in and you think you're excelling and you're a big fish in a small
Yeah,
pond,
exactly.
and then you come in and there's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, or you think you're going to a place where it's going to be so cool and you're going to be, talking about the theater all the time and arguing about Chekhov and all this stuff, and then you find out that the school is not a very kind place.
In a similar way, in terms of like standing up for yourself and finding your identity, Jim tells this story multiple times about sort of on Aliens, and you were like, I don't want the guns, and then he's like, I took her out back and we shot the guns. Are there ways in which you've sort of been able to sort of implement your own values, or sort of it's like a cute story, and also I'm like, well, I don't know.
I mean, actually, the truth is that I was working on something else when I got this, and I then did another film before this. I was so busy that year that I think I skipped the stage directions. So it was a total surprise when it turned out to be all about guns. And, luckily Jim does all that. It had to be there.
And I guess what I'm curious about is, from that, are there times now that you've been able to sort of go in and say, I'm thinking about this, and I want to bring this into this story?
I think that's why I'm hired. I think that that I can get very specific. I don't care about the genre. I like science fiction because I think the stories are really interesting, and I just go after the story, and I don't care how big the part is or how small. And when I feel that I can be part of a really good story that audiences will enjoy and will take them out of themselves, and that's about something bigger than the people in it, I go for it. And so I've had a quite wild career because of that, but a lot of fun. But I think I'm often hired because I can see, as an obnoxious English major, the problems with the script, the problems with the part. And I think they kind of suspect that if they hand it over to me, I'll fix them.
Something that sort of struck me last night watching it, this sort of theme of sort of an exploration of a sense of belonging and of outsiders that I think has run throughout your film history and career, that some of it is sort of inherent in the sort of genre, these sci-fi worlds where somebody's coming into a strange land, whatever, but some of it feels personal to me, and it definitely sort of ramps up in this a lot. There's a lot of sort of this, exploration of what it means to belong, and
to a family, to a community, right? To a tribe.
Yeah. Tell me about, is that something that's personal to you, and what did you want to sort of explore about that in this?
I mean, what I'm trying to do with all the Avatar films, and specifically this one, is connect with people around the world. And so many people feel unseen, like they don't know what's inside me. And that might be other members of your family, that might be members of your community. Where we belong, what is home. And I think some people innately have that, and a lot of people, I think, are searching for it. We feel more disconnected from each other than ever. Is technology playing a role? Is the scale of just our sort of, global spread and all of the geopolitical tensions, is that adding to it? Is immigration and displacement adding to that, right? Fear, there's so many things to fear and be anxious about these days, I think adds to it. It creates an us versus them mentality, right? So empathy, I always say empathy is our superpower, right? The ability that we have to look into somebody else, to see them and see their pain or their joy or whatever it is, and feel it for ourselves. We're all wired that way. We've been wired that way by evolution, and that's how movies work. That's what those actors up on the screen, they're making me feel something because of what they're going through. And if it's love, if it's joy, if it's triumph, if it's heart-wrenching despair, I'm feeling it too, right? And so, I think a movie can communicate those ideas, and I do think, these scripts were written, meaning 2 and 3, were written over 10 years ago. But man, is this movie right on the money for what's happening today? And if it's got a message of hope and connection and empathy in it, and that comes through for people, then it will have been, worthwhile going through all the effort and all the money we spent and all the time we spent making it, It's about connection. It's about connecting with people. The movie has to connect with the audience, right? That's critical. And maybe if you walk out of the theater thinking, oh, maybe I should look at my kids a little bit differently, or maybe I should look at my parents a little differently. I should look at, some of my preconceptions about other people that are in the out groups, because you were talking about sort of in-group, out-group kind of stuff, and that's what it's all about. Our empathy kind of backfires on us. This has been a bit of an epiphany for me lately, which is we love the people around us, and we feel protective and having a duty to them. And that sort of puts us sometimes into a position of saying everybody else is the enemy to that. If I feel threatened, if I feel anxious for my in-group, the people that I love, that I have empathy for, then everybody else must be the enemy. And that's where we're going, and we have to break that, right? So the film is called Fire and Ash for a specific reason. It seems kind of obvious. Oh, fire people, ash people, right? But I found that title through a process that went, when I had written this line for Loak, our storyteller, and he says, the fire of hate leaves only the ash of grief. And I thought, all right, that's half the equation. The other half of the equation is that grief, that loss, that trauma fuels the fire of hate, and it just loops endlessly, right? And we see it in Ukraine, we see it in Gaza, we see it in all over, we see it in Sudan. There's so many things that become generational. They just propagate through time, and it's all, those guys hurt us, therefore we must fight back. Well, isn't that the ash people? The ash people are wearing the ash of their trauma, and they've been traumatized, so they're taking it out on everybody else. Neytiri's been traumatized. She wears the ash of the Na'vi grieving kind of ceremonial thing, and she can't get past it. Even when she washes that off, it's still there for her, and it manifests as hatred for the sky people. Unfortunately, poor Spider walks right into her gun sights, metaphorically speaking. She doesn't use a gun, she uses a bow. But, so this is all thought through, and it all seemed timely when I wrote it, and it seems just as timely right now. But if people can go into a movie theater and go on that kind of dark emotional roller coaster and come out of it with a sense of hope and connection and belonging, right? And feel the characters finding their place of belonging and of being seen. And not just finding it, but earning it. Spider earns it. He's courageous, he's heroic. He does amazing things. He has to earn it, earn Neytiri's respect, So anyway, I don't want to give away too much, but it's not a big downer, I know, yeah. Right? It kind of sounds like it is, right? There's death and grief and loss. It's like, yeah. No, it's heart-wrenching, but it's not a downer.
One technical thing I wanted to ask you about was the frame rate switching. Tell me about sort of how you're thinking about that and what it does, how much you sort of tweaked that over the course of the edit process. It's a striking thing for those that are going to see it that way.
Yeah. Look, we think of frame rate as an authoring tool and use it sparingly to do specific things, as opposed to a format where you're going to watch a whole movie in a high frame rate format. I don't think of it that way. So I love 3D, as you know, the films are in 3D. Some people complain about eye strain. It's actually not eye strain. We make 3D in our brains, in our visual cortex, back here at the back of our brain. So when we try to fuse an image into a stereo image in our mind, if some of the visual cues are strobing across the screen, we've lived with this for over a century, 24 frame rate. But you pan the camera or you have a moving subject, there are certain scenarios where it strobes. The brain loses there are neurons that actually process parallax. They actually lose the ability to process parallax, and your brain starts to go, wait, I'm not seeing the 3D. So this is now something that's well understood. We've gone deep on this and studying the problem, done a lot of tests. We've sort of studied the neurophysiology of this, if you will. And so now we apply the higher frame rate as needed to smooth out and recapture that sense of stereo for ourselves. And so we use it sparingly. Right up to the point where I said, every underwater shot in the movie is in 48 frames a second. And we did that just to give it an otherworldliness, a sense of being different than being above the water. And that worked too. We sort of pioneered that on The Way of Water, and we're applying it as well. So about 45% of the film, 45% of the film is at 48 frames a second. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
There you go. You got me to nerd out.
My sense of when Jim on set is that he has these like crazy high expectations. He makes everybody sort of be at their best, be super prepared, be, on it. And I wonder what of that and sort of being on set and living in that world for, you guys as long as you have, and you've sort of somewhat more recently, have you taken back to your sort of everyday life and your other art or projects?
Jim doesn't articulate, say, you must be at your best, you must this. He leads by example.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent upon any actor who works with Jim to bring your A game, because you know he's going to bring his. Okay? And but in fact, it's not, you feel incredibly supported by Jim when you're there. But there is a takeaway. There is a takeaway in terms of hard work, of focus, attention. I've become a better actor and a more focused human being because of my association with Cameron over the last 20 years.
I feel like
Because I admire him.
Yeah.
I admire it, you know what I mean?
I feel like there must be this like crazy discipline with him that I don't know, but
Yeah, I mean, I think Slang's absolutely right. He leads by example, and that's when one of the pieces that I observed with awe was the power of his word. When he says go, people go, and they're going with like everything they got, because his word has so much integrity, because he's in alignment, and he's like, he will go and he will lead the charge, and it's so inspiring. It's so I'm just very, very inspired by the process, and I'm definitely do my best to have the perseverance and the curiosity that I've learned from everybody on this set.
I think sometimes discipline has such a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
There is a demand for excellence by Jim, because we're taking time away from our families to tell these stories. So what are we doing it for if we're not going to aim high? He has such an attention to detail. I've took that into other work. Beans in a bean bag, I call it. The more beans you got in that bag, the more comfy the seat. So we just pile it in. And you go on other jobs, and that can lead to conflict because you're demanding so much, and you're demanding details and questioning everything. So I find other movie sets, don't compare, often.
One of the conditions of humanity, but certainly within our business, is a terrible fear of failure. And the thing is with Jim, failure is an option. It can happen. Fear is not.
Yeah.
He's absolutely fearless, and he leads in that way, and he enables us, to be fearless as well. You know? And that's a great distinction, to not be afraid of failure.
And it's curious you mentioned discipline, because discipline literally means learning. That's what the
You're
word.
a disciple, yeah.
Yeah. And so the learning and the constantly learning means there is no mistakes. There's just learning.
Right.
And when you have a mind for learning, that's what it is. And that's alive there for sure.
Oona, I know something that you sort of share with Jim is sort of an empathy for and a sort of uplifting of indigenous cultures and sort of celebrating resistance. What was it like sort of acting that out on set? And then what's it like sort of either last night or sort of fairly recently seeing this celebrated on the big screen in our year of 2025 in this context?
Well, I think everyone that is a part of Avatar and that likes Avatar, it has that same affinity, because ultimately, the cultures that are earth-based, that consider, that take life to be sacred, and the mystery of whatever that is meaning sacred. But everybody tunes in with that. Whenever anybody walks into the Avatar movie, we're all blue, in the audience. Nobody's rooting for the other guys. So I feel like that's the beauty of this story is that it unifies us in understanding that we have an inherent love and affection for earth-based understanding and connection and relationship to life and to the living systems. But yeah, I mean, it was such a glorious thing to finally, it's the first time that I get to work in a movie where I'm like, oh, everything that I've been doing, all these, I've been working with Indigenous people for the past 15 years of my life, devoting so much time and so much energy to cultivating relationships that are, based on reciprocity and trust and trying to learn as much about Indigenous technologies as I possibly can because it's fascinating and has made my life better. And so I get to bring that and bring it to set. I get to bring some of my friends to set. Like I brought a couple of guys, hooked the Avatar up with some of my friends from the Amazon, and they came and they gave this 6-hour blessing and ceremony for everybody on the set. Kate Winslet, the garbage guy, the canteen, all the geek squad. Everybody is like. Everybody got to experience ceremony, not just in the conceptual, but also in the real. So it was a great gift, and I'm also thrilled because also then through the Avatar Foundation, James Cameron also supported their project, and then where they are in the Amazon in Acre, that was where they held a huge conference of Indigenous people, where 400 Indigenous people met just recently to discuss the problems that they're having in the Amazon. So it's an incredible gift to be a part of this project and to be able to bring all of that richness and wealth that has so helped me in my life.
You want to take on Awa? You need me.
We had sort of, Jake and Neytiri's relationship. In this one, we have an incredible new relationship. Tell me about the sort of did you guys do a chemistry read between the two of you? Did you what did you share in common? Did you start sort of like saying, "Here's the music I like"? Because it's an incredible sort of chemistry between you two.
I don't know. We had I think there was an appreciation, first of all, for the sweetness of the roles and the relationship. Yeah. So that inclines you to be feeling, creative and good. And then we hit it off just because we're both sort of good, optimistic, friendly people who are, going to work. And over the course of working, we discovered, I think, an intimacy that plays very nicely. There's a lot of mutual need between these characters, maybe, and there's also a shifting balance of power. The dynamic of who's running this show right now is going to continually change, and that makes for that's a very real thing, I think it can make for a really fertile relationship, because you don't know where the day is going to lead you,
I'm kind of helpless before this guy. I mean, you pop into my mind so much. I'd be doing dishes and like, oh, how's slang doing? And I just felt, I'm like, oh, how's my slang, and how's Tina? I think about you guys a lot. Like, there was something, and that might just be the magic of Pandora, but there was something where it was, we did hit it off.
Hit it off
was
real
so
good.
Yeah,
Yeah! What does that always say?
Sully, stick together.
No, the other one.
Sully never quits.
That's right. Sully's never quit.
Tell me about this relationship and when you guys first met each other. What do you share with each other? What have you sort of stayed up on? Like, do you send a new song if you hear something that comes out that each other would like? Like, what's the relationship like now, and how's it sort of shifted since filming?
So none of us auditioned together, which is so funny because most of the younger cast auditioned in my round, but Jim was that was the role that took the longest. So Trinity and I met. Trinity was in a different round because she was with girls her age.
Actually, just always auditioned by myself.
So you never had a
saw
group?
anyone
Really?
in my whole audition process.
Okay.
All I saw was Margie, our amazing casting director, and then the Titanic poster on the wall, the Avatar poster on the wall, and other than that, just me, myself, and I, and my mom, who drove me so far. Yeah.
And then she walks into the room, and she's just like, "Hi!" And I was like, "Oh my God!" Because we never read read the script before, so we just know we're part of Avatar. I didn't know there was going to be like a little like girl, and I was like 13. I was like, oh my God, it's a sister! Like I was so excited. And then Jack came 3 months later. We were waiting. We're like, where's the last like addition to like the kids? Where is Spider? And then Jack came.
And then I remember I met you guys and John or John Lando. He was giving me a tour of like the whole facility, like all these different sound stages. And I remember, did I meet both of you at Crafty?
I swear.
It was like
I remember the exact part of the stage, and it's like painted a bit yellow on the floor. And we met you for the first time, you and your mom. And I feel like it was the two of us. Am I insane?
I have no memory.
I think it was.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we always see each other like somehow, some way, like at least once a year, you know? So I feel like I feel like we always see each other, and then we always like we don't text as much just like constantly throughout the year, but whenever we like meet up back together, there's just like a big just kind of, hey, what have you been up to, blah blah blah, and we just like catch each other up.
I love seeing other people that I know in the industry that meet you guys. Like
Yeah.
I always
like
think that's funny.
What do you call it? Mutual friends that we all would have, yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that part.
They're like, do you know them? I'm like, do I know them?
Yeah.
We went through a lot together. Yeah.
That's funny.
Which of you is most like your character?
I think I was more like Saraya when I was younger. I'm interested to see if we get to do 4 and 5, if I'll like be like her, because like Jim has told me some things that make sense to who I am now. I wonder if like that was just a beautiful coincidence that as I've grown, Saraya's where she is, it aligns in our lives. It was mainly like the warrior spirit. So much happens in Avatar Fire and Ash that just erupts Saraya's world and what she thought her life would be like, you know, meeting someone from a different clan. That didn't happen. Like, you don't have relationships with other clans that are so intimate. And then she meets Loak, and they have a budding romance, and that really changes what's going to happen in her future. And I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a lot of also familial stuff that really will change her fate.
So cool. I feel really close to Took. I think it's been really lovely to grow with her, and I hope to continue to grow with her if we continue this saga. Fingers crossed. And I love Took. I relate to her in so many ways. We're both the youngest child of our family. We both definitely don't want to be underestimated, and we want to keep up with the older kids, at least at that time when I was playing her especially. And we're both come from mixed-race families, and I really relate to her in that way. I wish I was as fearless as her, but I hope to take on her warrior spirit. I definitely have not gone through the crazy things Took has had to go through, including the war that her and her family are going through, and just constantly living in fear, being on the run, and having a family motto that is Sully stick together, but feeling like it's so hard to, and just trying to keep everything together. I think those are things that I had to explore within Took, but that were accessed through Jim's awesome direction and also just connecting to who she is as a person.
I was talking to Zoe about this. Like, do you feel like something weird in your bones, like when you watch the movies now, within whatever it was, the past month or so that you guys actually got to watch the movies, where you like flash back to yourself at that time? Like, what is that experience like? Like, physically, I would imagine that would feel really weird, right?
I mean, I definitely feel like when we watched the movie a couple days ago, all these memories came flooding back because we watched it in the studio that we grew up in, and it was so, I mean, like, trip down memory lane times 1,000. Like, it was just I remember the day I shot, I remember all these things, and that's why I just got so emotional after the movie was done, because I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm like 12 again, and all these memories, it was crazy.
There's a scene between Zoe and Kate, Ronal and Neytiri, and I wanted to see it. When I read it in the script, I was like, I have to be there to see Zoe and Kate do this scene. And the way that Jim then edited it, the minute I knew it was happening, I started bawling, because one, it's so emotional and beautiful to see two women that in Way of Water butted heads now have this scene where they're clashing, and it's so emotional, and I'm so excited for fans to see. But it's also, it moves the story along and leaves a big question mark, and I literally had to take my 3D glasses off because it was so beautiful, and they're such powerhouses, and I loved it so much.
I saw you guys. Yeah, you had was it your post where you guys showed like you?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. We came out Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and sobbing. Yeah.